Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Everything Motor Racing podcast. I am joined again with Jacob Ward from Now Moto.
What's going on, guys?
And Keelan McNamara from, I don't even know, Mars or something. No idea.
Hello, everybody. We still haven't worked out where I'm from, but I'm glad to be back here for the fifth time. How are we all doing?
Yeah, I don't think they can answer that.
One of the islands.
Yeah, somewhere in Mars.
Not Ireland.
But
definitely not there.
No, definitely not Ireland. But yeah, we are back after some interesting news yesterday. It's obviously we've got Portimao next weekend as well, so there's lots to talk about, lots to think about, and lots of opinions that we can put on blast for you guys to listen to and slate and whatever. But yeah, it's been an interesting weekend because obviously Marc Marquez has now announced that he will be returning to MotoGP next weekend. It was expected that he was going to have a checkup with his doctor on Monday, so tomorrow. We're recording this on the 11th, so Sunday the 11th. So he was going to have a talk with the doctor tomorrow, tests, and then they will obviously decide if he's fit to race. But it was announced yesterday morning, so Saturday morning, that he is able to race and he will make his racing return at Portimao this weekend. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah. It's good for the sport that he's back, if we're being totally honest. Because you want the riders who are at the top and the best riders in the world, in the best racing series in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, as long as he comes back the same Marc Marquez that he left, which I think he will, he's mentally very strong. I see no reason why he can't come back and, not instantly win, but certainly be near the top, no thereabouts. I see no reason why that couldn't happen. And if that is the case, then it's just good for the sport.
Yeah, as Declan said, we know Mark was obviously being assessed very closely by his medical team. I was quite pessimistic about Mark coming back to Portimao, but then again, Marc Marquez does what Marc Marquez does, and he has confirmed that he is coming back next weekend at Portimao. Now, as long as Jacob said, as long as it's even remotely the same Marc Marquez coming back as the Marc Marquez that left, HRC are going to be very, very happy, and the rest of the paddock should be concerned. Declan put up the little clip from The Office, of course, and funny as that was, it is an accurate representation of the rest of the paddock. They will be very, very concerned about Mark coming back, because even a 50-60% wounded Marc Marquez is an incredible threat to the rest of the paddock, and he might even be very close to being fully fit. So, irrespective of who you like and who you truly support, it is fantastic for the sport that Mark's back. Joan Mir was fantastic in winning the title last year, and he deserves all the credit that he gets. But a lot of people doubt him because, of course, Mark was out for the 90% of the season. So I'm very intrigued to see how the rest of the paddock reacts to this and how the results change. Has Marc Marquez got the ability to seamlessly come straight back in or yet? Time will tell, but Portimao just got a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think Marquez, it's an interesting one with Mark because obviously he spent the entirety of 2020 sat there on his couch with maybe his team around him. I don't know. There's also a clip on social media of him with a pretty Peaky Blinders-esque haircut.
That haircut, my God.
It was definitely like a home jobby one. But
that was a bull on the edge job.
Yeah, that was bad. But obviously he was sat in his living room watching the races, screaming obviously for his brother Alex, because it was one of the races Alex got on the podium. And you can...
It was Aragon.
Yeah, I believe it was Aragon, yeah. But I was like, I'll probably get it wrong.
No, it was Aragon, because then he tweeted after and he said, I am the brother of Alex Marquez.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I remember that. That was brilliant. That was hilarious. I love his humour.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, with Marquez, it's interesting because obviously he spent the entirety of 2020 sat on his couch watching all these races unfold and watching Joan Mir, transform into the world champion he is, and watching 9 different race winners and 15 different riders stand on the podium, which is an incredible feat. But you just know he's going to be desperate to be there with them, desperate to kind of battle on track with them, desperate to be a part of that action. And I can guarantee you it will have fired him up even more than it did when he was in 2013 and was a rookie. He's going to have
Absolutely.
so much hunger, eagerness, and desire to just come back and, smack down MotoGP because, he will. He's just got that fire in him now. This is what I think anyway.
You know what, though? Do you know what I think? I think people are missing the fact that Mark is a very, very smart rider.
Yeah.
He's watched all the races. He's going to have learned a lot about the riders that he might not have seen on track.
That's an excellent point.
So he's going to have learned the strong points and weak points of riders who maybe he wasn't competing with in 2019, for example.
Yeah.
Like Morbidelli, for example, because we expect Frankie to be at the front a bit, very soon.
Yeah.
He's got a lot coverage on telly than he saw on the track, and that's only going to play to his favour for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point, Jacob. I genuinely never thought of that. Mark is not the kind of person whose brain switches off. One thing you can never ever deny about Marc Marquez is his sheer love for the sport that he is so successful at. And as Jacob's just told you all, he will have dissected everybody in the paddock and everybody on the track. And as Declan said, there were 9 different race winners last season. And you do have to wonder, if Mark had been competing last season, how many of those wins might he have picked up? Or at the very least, how many of the podiums might he have taken?
Yeah.
So Mark's coming back with a vengeance, be under no illusion.
Yeah, I mean, in 2019, obviously you mentioned the 9 different race winners. He, in 2019, apart from obviously Kota when he had his accident, he basically
was
finished,
a technical issue.
Yeah, it wasn't even his fault.
Him, yeah.
His worst result was second place. He was either first or second all season long. And going into 2020 with that kind of fire after Jerez, where he just basically wiped the floor of the field, you've got to think he probably could have done like an Agostini where he just won every single race.
Yeah. It's very possible.
What I haven't seen mentioned very much either is that Marx, I think, has come back from worse injuries. In that, do you remember his Moto2 injury?
Yeah.
Where he could have gone blind after a Phillip Island crash, or Sepang crash, one of them.
Sepang, because he...
And he could have gone blind, and literally lost his sight for the rest of his life. I think I consider that a worse injury than a broken bone and infected bones and stuff.
Yeah, exactly, I agree.
Yeah.
Because he spent obviously a lot of time in the winter trying to recuperate because he could barely see. I believe he had double vision as well. Obviously cost him the Moto2 title, which he could have won as a rookie, which is unbelievable. But, he managed to bounce back in 2012, was there at Qatar and won the title, winning races from the back of the grid.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what you got to consider is he's come back from worse and wiped the floor with everyone. So I don't see any reason he couldn't come back and do it again. Obviously, it's slightly different in that if he crashes and breaks the bone again, he's in real trouble.
Yeah.
Whereas once his eye had healed.
I see what you mean.
At risk.
Yeah.
Boo, terrible.
Yeah, Marc Marquez is tough as hell, and he will literally ride that bike until the wheels fall off and until he physically can't get up again. He will do everything that's within his physical and psychological power. And to me, that's what makes Portimao so damn interesting this incoming weekend. I'm so intrigued to see how much he's recovered and how he does against the rest of the paddock. Because Jacob is right. In Jerez, a lot of people forget he breezed through the majority of the grid before he ended up crashing again. And it's perfectly possible he does that again. So, Marc Marquez, time for you to make a statement. I'm so curious to see which version shows up.
Yeah, because
I'm hoping he doesn't make a statement and he just rides within himself. If that's 7th place, then that's 7th place.
Take the point at the end of the day. I mean, because it very much sounds like we're just worshipping Marquez at this point, but at the end of the day, it's Marc Marquez. He's one of the most talented riders.
It's not even that. It's a case of you have to recognise talent, recognise game.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, at the end of the day, he's a phenomenal rider. But we've actually got an article coming out tomorrow on the Everything Motor Racing website, where I basically go into a bit of depth of what we think he can do. But to give you a snippet on it, I personally, this is my opinion and only my opinion, obviously we can't actually tell what happens until he goes on track. There's no way we can be like, Marquez is going to win every race. Marquez is going to do this. Marquez is going to fail, and he's never going to, be the same rider he was, because we can't tell that. We haven't got a crystal ball. But I definitely think Marquez will be. He's an incredibly calculated rider, as Jacob said. He thinks about what he does. He's got a rhythm to it. He plays mind games. He beat Rossi at his own mind games. He is. He's
that's a rarity.
Yeah, and he's already been playing mind games. There's that story of when he walked into the gym in Qatar, and obviously all the riders turned around and were like, "Okay,
who's this guy? Why is his arm back?"
Yeah, so the mind games have already started, and I think the riders will genuinely be not scared of him, but they will be wary. But I know that a lot of riders are using this as motivation because they want to beat Marc Marquez. Oliveira wants to beat him. Mir wants to beat him. Obviously, Fabio Quartararo wants to beat Marquez. So he's going to have a lot of hungry riders out there to beat this year if he wants to be at the top.
Yeah, I think my only concern is, even though he's ridden Portimao on an RCVS, it's a different kettle of fish riding the current RCV.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think my only concern is that dodgy little front end snaps on him, and he won't have the strength to save it.
Yeah, but you got to think as well that Bradl has done a lot to improve the bike last year. So I'm hoping his work. Yeah, I'm hoping his work obviously comes to fruition. But maybe it's the opposite. Marcus is like, I hate this thing. What is this?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that even though he's improved it, it's still not where you'd want a good front end to be, so to speak.
Yeah,
like Mark can ride anything. Let's be real. But I'm concerned that it can easily just bite him.
Yeah.
So I think we won't see him going balls out straight away. And to be honest, a top 10, considering where he was a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
I would be more than happy to take that if I was a Marquez fan.
Yeah, points for Marc Marquez. Not even as a fan, just for the sport. For Marc Marquez to come back and hit even the point is just a phenomenal achievement, because I saw a tweet from Steve Day on Twitter. I'm not going to take credit for it. And he basically said that it was 265 days since Marc Marquez last competed in the MotoGP official event, which was the race he crashed out of.
Yep.
I think it was 517 days since he last finished a race. That's quite.
That would have been 2019, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Valencia 2019.
That's crazy.
It's a massive chunk of time. So if he can come back and even just score points, that is just monumentally impressive by itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one other point that I'll make about the Marquez issue as well is, assuming hypothetically that he's recovered well and that he ends up getting towards the old Marc Marquez towards the middle or perhaps even the end of the season, I think one dynamic to watch out for is going to be his resuming battle with Ducati. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that Ducati, we all saw the Losail races. That Ducati is terrifyingly quick, and I'm really, really curious to see how Marc deals with that too, because the way, of course, to make up for the Ducati's top speed is in the corners, and Marc's going to need all of his physicality, especially that right arm, to cut inside that Ducati and get past him, because Vinales did it. Really?
Yeah, because obviously, I don't want to cut you off, but obviously you mentioned the Ducati doing great and all that, which it did, and it's got, on both races, it had 2 Ducatis on the podium. Obviously, we had Pecco, we had Zarco, Martin, obviously Zarco again, but you're forgetting about the man in the middle step, which is Yamaha. The Ducatis are great on a straight, and Ducatis will destroy you on a straight, but they can't turn. Yamaha aren't as fast on the corners, but can keep up with the Ducati slipstream, and can turn. I think Marc Marquez has got his work cut out for him, for Fabio Quartararo and Maverick Vinales and Franco Morbidelli, if he can obviously improve on his luck.
I'm disagreeing with you there.
Really?
I don't think the Yamahas are going to do very well at Portimao.
Maybe not at Portimao, but I think...
Yeah, going forward perhaps, but Portimao...
That's KTM all over.
No, I genuinely think that the Ducatis and the Hondas will be better than the Yamahas at Portimao.
I can,
Because we know, as I've said previously, the Yamaha is brilliant on a high grip track.
yeah,
We're going to a track that isn't notoriously high grip now, and I think we'll see the true Yamaha.
yeah. I can agree with that. I mean, it will be interesting because obviously Miller got second last year at the track, so it's not like the Ducati are slow at Portimao, but the main
And it turns
man,
better now.
yeah, exactly. But at Portimao, the main man we've got to watch out for is Miguel Oliveira.
Yeah. He's let's be honest, he's gotta go being his favourite, haven't he? Like
Yeah.
if we being totally honest.
He's probably done more laps around there than Piro's done around Misano, kind of thing.
Yeah.
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 So,
And we saw all we've got to base it on is last year.
yeah, exactly. They're not done
And
it yet.
last year Miguel was in another dimension.
Yeah.
Whether the KTM issues will still remain because we don't know because they've only tested at Qatar.
Yeah.
If the KTM issues of having too much grip, etc., upsetting it are still there, then perhaps not.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm really loath to make a Portimao prediction because we've only had Qatar, which,
Yeah.
for all
Yeah.
intents and purposes, throughout the season doesn't count.
No, it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, it's an I'm going to really struggle to pronounce this, but an anomaly. I can't say
Anomaly,
anomaly. Yeah, anomaly.
it is.
I can't pronounce it. But yeah,
But yeah, it is an anomaly. Like because what you got to think is nobody likes Qatar. Like in terms of conditions, they love the track.
yeah,
The layout
great
is
track.
spectacular.
Yeah, it's
but
a great track.
The actual conditions, etc., are not good for testing your bike.
No,
That's true.
So
no
Portimao
sport.
is going to be the first real test, and I can guarantee that we'll see people out from minute one and practicing their race runs from the off
Oh yeah.
But
because
The
you
thing
have
is,
to.
the thing as well with Portimao is, as we know, Portimao is just an absolutely beautiful track, and it has the perfect climate for MotoGP racing too. That's why, of course, it's been so popular with World Superbike for so long because you've got you don't have any crosswinds. You've got the weather to actually go out and practice and race. Whereas, of course, with Qatar, you've got those really strong headwinds. You have sand on the track, and you have all those other issues. So I do think that's an interesting point for sure that Jacob makes, and one I agree with. From minute one on Friday, you will see everybody out on that track testing and pushing the pace right away.
I don't think we'll see Marc go straight out though.
yeah, I think he'll kind of,
He'll have 5, see what's going on, and
Yeah,
then go
he'll-
out
he'll
with
kind of-
about 10 minutes in.
yeah, scan the situation, scan it a bit, and go up. But I can guarantee you, although I don't like it, I'll explain what I mean by I don't like it in a second. But I think Marquez will definitely strike fear into some riders, even just his presence on track. Which,
Yeah.
if I'm honest, I don't like because at the end of the day, these riders shouldn't be kind of, I don't know, basing their performances on if Marc Marquez is racing. But
I know what you mean.
because obviously a load of riders are like, oh, Marquez
Well,
isn't
at
here,
the
so
end
we
of
got
the
a
day,
chance.
though, you've got to set yourself at the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark is the measuring standard for the MotoGP championship at this point. Whether you
Yeah.
love him or hate him, you just have to admit that.
Yeah, and if you're basing yourself on a performance, that's the one to aim for.
It is. But to put yourself down and be like, oh, can't win anymore because Marc Marquez is back, is the
I
wrong
don't think
mentality.
they will at this point.
I hope
If
not.
he comes back and he smacks a top 5,
Yeah.
suddenly then it'll happen. But right now, riders will probably just be thinking and possibly hoping that he doesn't come back the same guy.
Hmm.
But if
Oh, no
that's what you
question.
need to tell yourself until he can prove you otherwise in order to go fast, so be it.
I think many riders have come back and done well after injuries. You go into your leg injuries, you've got Ian Hutchinson, you've got Nick Doohan, you've got Barry Sheen, and then with arm injuries, you've got Ken Roxon, and he's winning races over in Supercross. So
You've got Rossi, who came back from a pretty bad injury.
the broken leg, wasn't
Mugello, if we're honest.
Yeah.
And that was a complete leg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he's given enough credit for that, if I'm honest.
No,
And
I agree.
I'm not a Rossi fan, but
Stoner
came back
has
from
broken
that.
leg. Stoner broke his leg
Yeah.
as well.
That's right.
And then
yeah,
obviously,
Stoner broke a lot of himself in that crash.
Danny Pedrosa
should
was
come
winning
back.
races.
Yeah.
Danny Pedrosa's destroyed himself. So
And the thing that everybody has in common that we've mentioned is that they are top riders in their respective categories.
exactly, yeah, they are you know,
So it's a combination of mentality and, let's be honest, Marquez has it.
yeah,
Simple as.
I guarantee you, we spent a hell of a lot of time with thoughts, sports therapists, and people who are designed to keep his mentality. Because I can guarantee you, during this like off time, he has had probably the darkest, most lowest lows of his entire life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I think he's going to be able to channel those lows into positive energy.
That's what good riders do.
Yeah, and
So there's no particular reason he can't. Until I'm prepared to believe that he'll come back the same until proven otherwise.
yeah, I mean, that's what I want to believe, but we'll see. Well, see.
Hmm.
Right.
So if we're going to stick our neck on the line before we move on,
Yeah.
where will Mark finish?
Oh, top 8. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that was my thoughts. Top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to push just inside the top 10 to the top 8 as well. He's definitely, if he has any sense at all, he's not going to overexude himself looking for a win or a podium. He should, for at least for the first couple of races he's back, adopt the Eddie Lawson tactic of point scoring. That's what's
Yeah.
going to get him back into this.
Yeah.
Because,
But one point I did want to make about that is just quickly, which is why I asked. We don't know his level. Who's to say he doesn't come back, rides within himself at 99%, and that's still enough?
He's setting lap records. He might even just not even try and still be beating everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We don't know what his level is going to be like when we come back.
No.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the great unknown.
Yeah.
Which is why I wanted your opinions on where he'd finish.
Yeah, perfect. Right,
Well,
moving on from Marc Marquez. Obviously, we've got Mr. Andrea Dovizioso testing the Aprilia this week at Jerez, which I'm quite excited about because obviously they were really impressive at Qatar. They managed to, with the latest Spargo, he was able to ride very close to the front. He set a record for the closest ever finish to the race winner in race 1 at Qatar, and then in race 2 he beat that. So
5.7 seconds.
yeah. So I think Aprilia are in a really good stead, and if Dovizioso is putting his faith, it's only a test, of course, and Lorenzo Savadori
only a test. Yeah. Okay, wait.
and Lorenzo Savadori will be on track there with him. He won't be riding. I don't believe he will. Actually, he might be riding because he's still kind of a test rider. But obviously, don't take that as fact because I'm not.
He'd probably be on an RSVX, perhaps.
Yeah, and so Dovizioso will be tested this week with Cal Crutchlow and some other test riders. So it will be interesting to see how he gets on, if he likes the Aprilia, the feedback that he gives out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him at the top of the timesheet. Not even joking.
Yeah, I've said on the last couple of episodes of the podcast, of course, when we heard about Dolby testing the Aprilia, Aprilia have developed a very, very good bike, but they are still missing that last step. And I do believe Andrea Dovizioso could be that missing step. The amount of examples you can cite are absolutely endless in the paddock. Danny Pedrosa turned a pig of a KTM into a title contending bike. Look at Sylvain Gintoli and what he's done with Suzuki. I really do believe Davi has the intelligence and the cerebral nature to clinically get on that bike, do the amount of laps he needs to do, and he will go to Aprilia's crew chief and the garage and say, right, we need to get rid of X, Y, and Z and add A and B. He really could be the missing key. And if he is, the Aprilia could very well start getting race wins. I do believe they have the foundation to build on it, but they need the last step. And Dovizioso could absolutely be that last step for me, for sure. As I have said before, Davi is the only rider who's taken it as close to Marc Marquez as you can without surpassing him. So to have that mentality alone when it comes to developing your bike is going to be priceless. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Aprilia do with that.
Yeah, I don't want to go into it too much because obviously we discussed it in the last couple of podcasts.
Yeah.
But Davi's probably the best rider in the world right now who doesn't have a ride. So for Aprilia, it's a real coup to get him.
Oh, yeah. It's literally like, I don't know, Zlatan
even just to get to ride your bike.
Yeah, like it's like, I can't remember who it was, but like Zlatan Ibrahimovic being signed on a free transfer, Like, Dovizioso is such a high caliber rider. And the fact that he's just a free agent at the moment is like gold dust to Aprilia. This is a
He was riding on this weekend with Gautier Paulan, who is obviously a very fast MXGP rider,
yeah.
and he stuck with him. Like,
Yeah.
if he doesn't take this, Dovi will race Italian Championship, and he'll be up there or thereabouts. Like, anything on two wheels, he can ride.
Yeah, he's very quick on dirt or on tarmac. He's got that. I don't know, the instinct of a racer. That if a lot of these racers, yes, they can race motorbikes very fast, but they can also race other things very fast. We got a DTM podium last year in an Audi. He is, he's very
He's
fast.
calibrated for speed, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's just a petrol head. He really is.
just built for speed, pretty much.
Literally, he is calibrated to go faster than a normal human.
Yeah, exactly. And for Aprilia, this is amazing. I think they'll do everything they can to sign him, but obviously he does require a high price because of this. Because he's happy to just do motocross and toss about.
He doesn't need the money.
No, but he will want. He knows his worth. I think he doesn't need the money, but he's not going to be taken on by Aprilia for penny kind of thing.
I believe he's already signed. I'm just putting it out there. I
Maybe.
believe he's already signed. Aprilia have picked up the sponsorship they need.
Yeah.
And I believe he's already signed, and the plans are already in motion for him to replace Salvadori mid-season.
That's interesting. Yeah, and Salvador.
Very interesting.
Like I feel for Sava, but it's just not working for him at the moment. But Qatar, again, is a hard place. I'm prepared to reserve my judgment until we get to proper in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Salvadori is that he did make a big step in the Doha GP. I was really impressed by him, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a big step towards the front is one thing, but to make a big step so you're just not 2 seconds off the pace, you need to push on continually. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, don't take me the wrong way, I'm not slating Salvadori at all. But if you were developing a race-winning bike, you need to be having riders at the front.
Yeah.
And you have to be ruthless with your selection too.
Yeah.
I think if Salvadori has the talent that I believe he has, then there's no reason he couldn't get it. There's Aprilia towards the top 5, top 6. Honestly, I think he's brilliant at what he does.
Yeah,
his style's perfect for a MotoGP bike.
Yep.
And I just believe that he's going to need to calibrate himself to a MotoGP bike almost.
Yeah, I think he's just in the process of that, but obviously it does. It's a process that it doesn't happen overnight at the end of the day.
Well, this is his first MotoGP pre-season, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But he's, like we said, he is a fantastic rider, and even if he doesn't get the full-time ride, I can guarantee you there'll be a test rider again, and then he'll probably ride in the Italian Championship once again and win the title there. Because he won a championship last year. It's not like he's, backmarker.
He beat Pirro.
Yeah, I was going to say, he beat Pirro. He beat Lucas. Is it Lucas Salvador?
Yeah, Salvador, yeah.
Yeah,
honestly, and he beat Pirro on what is essentially a factory V4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fully factory.
Granted, he was also on a factory Aprilia 1100, but
yeah, he was.
You still got to ride the thing.
Yeah,
yeah. It's not like it's been go-karted around.
Yeah, you can have you can have the best bike in the world, but if you can't ride it, you ain't gonna win.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's just a scary thing to think that someone of Salvadori's talent is last and a bit off.
Yeah, it's sad, really, but I do think he will kind of come back to the front again because he is like we said, he's a fantastic rider, and there's no reason why he can't battle at the front at the end of the day.
Yeah, lots of people I think are just seeing him for the first time, where they haven't seen him obviously ride before. They're seeing that he's a bit off, and they think that he's a mediocre rider, and he really isn't.
All those Facebook experts, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those are the levels to this championship. A rider who's as good as Lorenzo Salvadori is, I don't think he does look average. I agree with Jacob. But if you strictly look at the timesheets and you look at the time that he's off, everybody looks at Salvadori and thinks, oh, he's bang average, and he really isn't. But that's where the issue with Dovey comes into play. You have to be willing to be ruthless in order to get a game-winning bike. And that's a decision Aprilia are going to have to make at some point.
Yeah, I think for all my praise of him there, I still think Dovizioso is a clearly better rider. Not even Salvadori's not even close to Dovey.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to justify that at the end of the day. You just have to look at Dovizioso's race record. He's a world champion. Yeah. He's Andrea
Yeah.
He is
Dovizioso.
up the next level, and he is the alien level that
Yeah.
not many riders reach.
He
So
is the fifth
it makes
alien.
Sava look rubbish when in fact he really isn't.
Yeah, I've always said, like, even when you go back to when it was, the aliens, it was Rossi, it was Lorenzo, it was Pedrosa and Marquez. I always said the fifth alien was Andrea Dovizioso.
Yeah, he was always in there.
Yeah,
Just never had the fanfare, did he?
no, exactly. And obviously he was riding a dodgy
But it worked for
Ducati.
him.
Yeah, and he still made it work for him, like you said. And even when he was riding that Ducati, like the GP14 and stuff, he was still like fifth in the championship. It's not like he was battling down for 10th. He is a great rider, and it's a shame he's kind of come to the front at such a late time in his career, in his 30s. Because if he had this kind of power in his 20s, he'd be a multiple time champion by now.
The only thing I do wonder is what would Aprilia's strategy be if Dovi wasn't available?
He wasn't what, sorry?
If Dovi wasn't available, what would Aprilia's strategy be then?
Probably cry in a corner like they've done
Yeah.
this year.
Well, no, because would Salvadori get the development lead because he was the test rider, or would it still be Aleix?
I'd say it's Aleix. I think Aleix is like the main man.
Aleix would make more sense to me.
Yeah.
But then, with that said, who'd you give it to if Dovizioso does sign if he hasn't already? Do you continue with Aleix's thing, or do you
give it to
hand
the
it to
world
Dovi?
champion? You hand it to the man with the biggest, best racing CV. I would hand it straight to Andrea Dovizioso in a heartbeat. And it wouldn't be a disrespect to Aleix, because Aleix has even said that Dovizioso can teach him a lot about riding and racing, and Andrea Dovizioso can help to improve the level of Aleix. So I would hand it straight to Aleix. No, to Dovizioso, sorry.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm glad you backed that.
Yeah, for once.
We all seem to be on the same page for once.
Yeah, probably everybody listens like, what the hell? No. But
No.
at least
get
us
used to it.
three, at least we're in tandem. But I wanted to move on as well to an issue, not an issue, maybe an issue. The big issue. There is a championship contending bike currently running around outside of the point, and it's fluoro green and backs two major riders in Valentino Rossi and Franco Morbidelli.
Well, you're talking about Kawasaki don't ride anymore.
I
Maybe
knew he was
turquoise.
going for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't remember last time Rossi rode a Kawasaki, but
Well, you said fluoro green.
Yeah, but then I said, oh well, whatever.
But yeah, it's a Qatar syndrome, I think, as opposed to a Petronas syndrome.
Yeah, I hope so, because obviously the Petronas team it's the Petronas team at the end of the day.
But for them both have issues. Like Morbidelli, seriously unlucky.
Yeah.
Rossi, as we discussed, more setup issues, which I think maybe not at Portimao, but at some point he will resolve.
Yeah.
Not saying he'll win, but he'll resolve it to get to around the top 8 with the other Yamahas.
Yeah.
I want to raise a point that I saw on Twitter earlier from Lewis Duncan, who obviously works at Autosport and Motorsport.com. So he wrote an article because Lorenzo spoke about Rossi's kind of his performance at Qatar.
Unbiased perspective incoming.
Yeah, and so basically Lorenzo said that Rossi disappointed him. He basically is. So I'm going to read the actual quote from Lorenzo instead of trying to decipher.
To be fair, what you got to think about Jorge is, as much as he is right with this quote, he's also bored.
I actually really rate his 99 seconds thing, though. I actually think it's quite good.
No, I mean, but I think he is bored and he's looking to stir it up for content.
Yeah, could be. But basically, he said his quote is, "Rossi has disappointed me, as I suppose he has disappointed his fans, because a lot is always expected from Valentino." So that was what Lorenzo said. Now, I saw a tweet from Lewis Duncan, who obviously mentioned what his job is, and he has tweeted saying, "Unsurprisingly, this has led to some interesting replies. I mean, Lorenzo isn't wrong on this one. There is no justification for qualifying 21st and finishing 16th at circuit where the same bike won twice."
Yes, and that is the tripping point for a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
The same bike won twice.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
like the bike can win races.
Yeah, like at Morbidelli, we can genuinely say, like, it's not a case of, oh, Morbidelli was bad. Morbidelli was just genuinely unlucky twice.
Freakishly unlucky.
Yeah, like obviously with the slider, and then he did do really
Yeah.
well to obviously recuperate back to 12th, but
Yeah, and to get your whole shot device stuck on.
oh goodness
Well,
me, yeah.
when
Yeah.
you know, of all the times it could happen, the opening race where your stablemate, not teammate, but stablemate wins.
Mm, yeah.
It's got to feel like someone just ran up and kicked him right between the legs. You know?
yeah, because it is tough. It's tough in that garage at the moment, and it's, I don't know. It seems to be. I don't want to slate on Rossi because obviously we discussed in the last podcast. You know, he is one of the greatest riders to ever grace the sport. But to finish 16th when these bikes are winning races, you know, and he had the same issues at the factory Yamaha team. You know, what is it? Is it can't be Yamaha, surely?
Yeah. Well, I think as good as we are, Jorge Lorenzo knows more than us.
Yeah, he's literally got championships
Yeah,
on that
his stats kind of win him that argument.
bike.
So when he talks, whether you agree with it or not, you
Listen.
should listen.
Yeah.
Like he said, like obviously just before the season started, he had the massive explosion online with Carl Crutchlow crashing off and then Jack Miller weighing in, etc.
Yeah,
A fight I'd still love to
Everything he
see, by the way.
everything he said was not incorrect.
No.
Which it's not. You don't like it, and he's not scared to say it. So for him to come out and say that, you know he means it.
Yeah, he's not like he doesn't mince his words.
Yeah, and for me, if he's saying that, I'd assume he knows what's wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to be asking Mr. Lorenzo is, rather than criticize it,
Yeah.
how do you solve it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how do you solve your issues in the
'cause,
Yamaha?
yeah, especially as he rode a Yamaha, you know what I mean? If anybody's going to know what it takes.
Well, you say that. If anybody knows what it takes, Valentino Rossi's won how many titles with Yamaha? I think it was 5. No,
None recently, though.
4. It was 4 titles for Yamaha, I believe.
Yeah, like it was a 6-year difference between Rossi winning his last title at Yamaha and Lorenzo winning the title at Yamaha.
Very true. But obviously, you say that obviously if anybody knows how to
I know
do
what
it,
you mean.
surely Valentino Rossi, one of the greatest riders to ever grace the sport, knows how to fix a Yamaha.
Yeah, but does he know to fix this Yamaha?
No, Jeremy Burgess might know.
Well,
look,
they said Jeremy Burgess said they could fix a Ducati in 90 seconds, and look what happened there. So
Touche.
True.
Touche.
Well, my perspective on it is this: as everybody listening knows, I'm kind of the resident Valentino Rossi defender on this podcast. So the only perspective I can really offer on Vale's issues is this. We know that he's had the same issue, and to his credit, Valentino's always been persistent in what issues he actually has on the bike. Those,
Yes.
as we know, are the 15 km/h top speed deficit and that bloody rear tire's lack of grip. Now, my perspective on it is this, and like one issue kind of intertwines with the other. The first, as I mentioned last week, was of course in 2015 Michelin became the tire manufacturer provider of MotoGP. Now, when Valentino experienced his peak years in the Yamaha, it was built around a Bridgestone foundation, and the M1 practically wiped the floor, with the exception of Stoner with every other rider. Now, I truly believe with Valentino and with the M1, it simply has not adapted to the Bridgestone tire, or sorry, the Michelin tire. They simply have not been able to find a way to make it work. Why that is, I can't say. Now, the issue with Valentino as well is a lot of people will point out, and they are correct to point it out, believe me, I have no issue acknowledging that. They will say, it's been 5 or 6 years since this tire came in. Why has it still not been solved? That leads into the second issue for me. And again, I will acknowledge before I say this, I could be wrong. I don't know the inner workings of Yamaha MotoGP, so I don't know if this is true or not. What I would suspect is, for whatever reason, whoever Valentino's teammate has been, and for a long time it's been Maverick Vinales at the factory team before he went to Petronas, Vinales has not had the same issues as Valentino. And because Vinales is, of course, younger and the future / present, Yamaha have built the bike around Vinales because, of course, you can only really use one set of information to build a bike around. So it's almost as if Valentino's concerns have become an afterthought, and Valentino's rear tire grip concerns have become a secondary thought for Yamaha, and they've tried to solve them with it not being a true priority almost. So that would kind of be the angle I'd be leaning towards as to why he's still suffering these issues. Personally, everybody knows I'm a big Valentino guy, unbiased, but a Valentino guy.
Sure.
I'd love to see him fix these issues. I really, really would, because I do feel that rear tire is hampering him massively. And especially for the last 3 or 4 years, he has been consistent in screaming at Yamaha to get the rear tire fixed or the grip issue fixed, and it still hasn't been fixed. So I struggle to see what more Valentino can do.
But what you got to think is, if it's working for 3 riders, the 4th rider who it isn't working for suddenly has to look at himself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's a fair point.
You
Maybe
can't,
if I wouldn't change a bike on one rider say so, if it's working for 3,
yeah,
and
because
that's the problem.
if it's working for 3 riders and all 3 riders are winning races last year, you're not going to suddenly, change all these issues because of one rider. You might make a little
I
amendment.
think it's Rossi's style.
I was just about to say that.
It's his old school style.
Yeah, because he has tried to adapt it, but
yeah, he's like he dangles off the bike more now, etc.
yeah,
but
he's OG.
his body position and his lean angle is not the same as the new generational riders.
Nowhere near. And that's
No.
not a slate of him, but
No, it's his era.
yeah,
He is of a bygone era, without wanting to put too fine a point on it.
He's a 500cc title.
Era.
Yeah,
he's a rider who, when he won a top class title, he didn't even have elbow sliders on his leathers. That's how far we've come.
They didn't even have shoulder sliders either.
That's how far we've come.
That's true.
You know what I mean? And I think he is a rider who needs a 990
yeah,
or an 800 to win, rather than this new generation of electronic D1000.
Yeah, you got to think he hasn't actually won a title with MotoGP moved to 1,000. Came close in 2015, and we won't
as
discuss
soon
that,
as electronics became more and more of it coincides with the fact that unified electronics have come along.
Yeah, Magneti Pirelli.
And as much as Yamaha thought they could develop their own, they didn't need a Magneti engineer, they did. But besides that, as soon as unified electronics have come in, the new generation riders with their extreme lean angles and trust in the electronics have gotten more out of bikes than the old school Rossi.
Yeah, because obviously they've got the one singular tyre supplier as well, because it used to be that you could have Michelin or you could have Bridgestone in the class. And now it's very much even across the board. And so riders are using these little things to kind of adapt and improve. And it goes back to what we spoke about last week with the Moto2 riders. The Moto2 riding style being pushed into MotoGP. Marquez obviously dragging his elbow, Paul Espargaro dragging his elbow. Yes, riders in the past previously have dragged their elbow if you want to be pedantic. But it was not as mainstream as what it is now. And this style, you have to be doing it naturally previously, obviously Moto2, to be able to adapt it into MotoGP style. Marc Rossi has had to change his style to do this. So he's not going to be, he might be 99% there, but he's not going to be as there with the style as what, say,
as I said last week, I think Jorge Martin is the final nail in the coffin because he's a great example of a trust in electronics.
Yeah.
He's come into the class purely on 4 strokes. Since Moto3.
Yeah, he's not ridden a 2-stroke.
He's not been massively bitten by a 4-stroke. He's now ridden, obviously last year when they moved to Triumph with actual electronics, although they don't have traction control, there's still electronics to help with the going forward, etc. And now he's gone onto the Ducati, which is probably the most electronic heavy bike of them all. and he
Yeah.
trusts it. You can see he knows what he's doing. He trusts the bike that when he opens the throttle, it won't snap him.
Yeah.
And I think Rossi is struggling with that because he
Yeah.
got onto a 500, which if you looked at it wrong, it would have put you in the hedge.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah.
And
I think as
you know,
well.
it's difficult, like it is. And like the first generation of four strokes, the 990s, they were evil.
Oh yeah.
Like the Yamaha especially he made it look good, but it was an evil bike.
Bag of bolts.
So,
I think I actually agree with you, Jacob. Yeah, I think it is more a generational issue than anything. I think Valentino is just used to that old riding style, and I really think Davi was the last of that generation who used that non-elbow down style. They were just more hanging off the bike in that way, as opposed to their entire body being on the tarmac. So perhaps that is it.
Yeah.
I don't see any other reason because the bike's the same. He's on a 21, the same as the other two.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I want to fire in a fun fact for everybody as well listening. So
Banding says.
there is an ex-Moto3 rider, Jacob Cornfile, who came through obviously the 125 series and stuff like that. He didn't drag his elbow. He didn't even have elbow sliders on his suit. You know, he was of that era, and that was in like modern Moto3. So yeah, random fun fact.
Didn't work in Moto E on a big bike against riders who are dragging their elbows.
Yeah, I think
Again,
the style
it could
is
hold some
dragging your
weight.
elbow. It
could hold some weight.
Exactly. So dragging your elbow and now getting low down with the floor is the newest thing. And yeah, interesting. I do really hope that Rossi kind of, fires one back at the, obviously, Petronas track. The Petronas track, the Portimao track, they've got good data from last year with Morbidelli's win. So it's not like, they've got a blank canvas. They've got good data. They've got a good setup they can use their advantage, obviously. But the thing is, that race was in November. This one's in April. It's going to
be the same conditions.
Yeah. So
I think that's why they scheduled it for April, because it'll be the same conditions. I think they want to give them a fighting chance of having the most data.
Yeah. So it will be interesting.
It just does depend on whether Yamaha, like for Morbidelli, there's not much you can say that he needs to do, because in all sessions in Qatar when his bike wasn't broken, he was up there.
Yeah, he was.
So for Frankie, he just needs a bit of luck.
Yeah.
But for Rossi, it's going to come down to he just needs to adapt. It's always, because of his age, he's always going to be chasing the 8 ball now.
Yeah, he will be.
I think.
At the end of the day,
and whether he likes it or not, he's going to be chasing the 8 ball. He's going to be slightly behind the new generation who the bikes are built around. It's just a fact of evolution.
Yeah, it is indeed. At the end of the day. Right, in this section of the podcast, we're going to do something a little bit different, because why the hell not? And basically what I've done, I've put a questionnaire thing on Instagram stories. I don't really know what it is, but you know what I mean. You can I ask a question, you can answer it, kind of thing. And so I've asked you guys basically to ask us some questions, and we'll answer them on the podcast. One of these is, why does this Welsh guy sound so sexy from Now Moto News?
Who posted that?
Jacob.
So, Jacob, why does this Welsh guy sound so sexy, Jacob?
I mean, it's just my lovely smooth tones, isn't it?
Right, okay.
But yeah, I'd like to know who posted that.
It was.
He says.
Oh, it was you. Oh.
No, you didn't say.
No. But yeah,
self-aggrandizing.
We've got some good questions. But a lot of them, I'm not going to lie, nearly all of them are, will Oliveira win at Portimao? And we're going to discuss our predictions a bit later on, so we'll let you know, kind of thing. But there is a really good question, actually, that I will ask about Miguel Oliveira, and it's from Daytona _675_Ash. It says, after Miguel's domination last year in Portimao, great spelling of Portimao, by the way, do you think he's under pressure to do it again?
Ooh. Yes, by the entirety of Portugal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course himself.
Of course.
because you can tell he loves representing Portugal. He
Oh,
loves
he
being the
adores
first
it.
Portuguese to do everything.
Yeah.
Like, he thrives on it.
Yeah, and so he's
so-
back in factory colours, you know.
Yeah, it's definite pressure. I think he can deal with it because Miguel is very cool.
Yeah. He's like a
But-
cool, calm kind of guy, you know?
But to answer the question, I would say yes, there's pressure from internal and external sources to win in Portugal and keep Portugal on the map almost. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. There is certainly pressure on Miguel Oliveira to win again, and like Jacob kind of alluded to there's pressure from a variety of sources. You know, Miguel Oliveira is going to expect a lot of himself because he wiped the floor with the rest of the grid last year. I mean, he looked absolutely world beating. Granted, that was one race, but he looked incredible. There's pressure from his team because they saw what he did last season and they will expect him to be as good, if not better, again. Of course, the problem is we've only been to Portimao once. So, of course, because this is only the second time, anybody could pull something out. But they will expect Oliveira to win again. You know, as Jacob said there now, I fully agree with him. He represents his country with pride. He represents Portugal with an immense amount of pride. And this is a home battle for him. He's representing his country in his country, so he's going to want to win this for his people. And as well as that, he kind of represents the entirety of the Portuguese-speaking MotoGP world too, because he is the only representative. I think since Alex Barros.
I didn't even think of that,
That's
to be
a
honest.
shout.
The Brazilian fans will be Miguel fans,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
since Alex Barros.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
because Granado's no longer in the paddock. Yeah,
he did get a podium though today. Big shout out to Eric Granado for getting third place in the E-Superbike Championship today. Well done, Eric. Really good.
That's a great point that I didn't even consider. Yeah, he's going to be Brazil's best hope almost because Portuguese language. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So Miguel Oliveira, you're representing a big part of South America and Europe.
So no pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So next question is from. I've got to find it now. Look how prepared I am. That's how we do it here. That is how we do it. So it's a question.
The fly.
Oh yes, pretty much. So it's a question mainly for Jacob because he's kind of quite good at these kind of things. I can't. Where on earth has it gone? There it is.
No pressure on me now.
So we've got, I'm going to butcher this, Pandian_RK asks, why does Suzuki and Yamaha use a inline engine and not a V4?
I believe that it's to do with the fact that the V4 engine manufacturers, KTM, Ducati and Aprilia, they hunt in power. And as we all know, as we see, the bikes that are down on power on the straights are both the inline 4 bikes. So I think you sacrifice maneuverability when you have a V4 because it takes up a lot more space, center of gravity changes, etc. But the payoff is that you get more power per cc. So I think Yamaha and Suzuki want an inline 4 because they want to retain a bike that handles. And then hopefully that's enough for them.
I mean, whereas
Ducati, they are doing the complete opposite of we want our bike to go ahead of someone in the straight, and then brake instability, meaning we tip into the corner first, and you can't pass us in the middle of the corner because you can't run through us. Yeah. Which, as we saw last year, was Yamaha's biggest problem. Once a Ducati passed them on the straight, they couldn't get back past because they couldn't pass the bike that was in the middle of the corner because they couldn't run through them.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, I think they're keeping it an inline 4 because they want to retain handling over power.
Good answer. So we've got next
Applause.
question. Yes, well done.
Yeah.
So there's another question, which I like this question because this rider doesn't get talked about too much, and I really rate him. I really like the guy. I think he's a good kid. So Max Jacobson 05 has asked, what are your thoughts on Max Koffler? And I really like this kid.
Oh, that's actually a really, really good question. I'd like the opportunity to talk about Max Koffler actually, because he is a he's a fantastic rider. He is like, I don't know what to say where I don't rip him in a way, because he is such a good rider that I think he's actually underachieving slightly right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
The same as I think him and Dupasquier are two of the best riders who weren't scoring points in Moto3 last year.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
agree.
Now this year they've taken their step, but Koffler for me is one of those riders who has the potential to go and easily get into the top 5 in Moto3.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's Austrian, which is obviously a different dynamic because the way he comes into racing is different. He did end up in the Spanish CV Championship eventually with the Aspar team, and
Yes.
he's a very solid rider at the end of the day. You know, he didn't score any points last year, but he's 20 years old pretty much, nearly. I think he's 19 at the moment.
I think he's more than solid, honestly.
Yeah,
I
I
think
really rate
So
him.
do I.
for his talent, he's not achieved what I would expect him to achieve at the moment.
But
He does have time to turn it around.
yeah, exactly. He's still very young, and at the end of the day, if he performs this year, he's got a chance to, you know, for example, if Andrea Mignot leaves the class this year, or you know, Locatelli leaves, or if you know John McPhee, he's got a chance if he can prove himself to, you know, step onto a really good ride for next year. Same with Dupasquier. You know, there's the Austrians and the Swiss riders. The funding they have is not as much as say a Spanish rider or an Italian rider.
True.
And so what he's doing with the lack of kind of equipment and etc., lack of sponsors, this way he's done it, he's had to basically fight tooth and nail to get where he is. And I really rate him. He scored his first points this year, and I think he'll just carry on improving and impressing.
Yeah. I'd like to give his dad a shout out, because his dad has basically funded him and his brother, Andreas,
Yeah.
out of his own pocket almost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
I think
you know,
I think Max
take away.
Koffler is an unbelievable rider. I think him and Jason Pasquier, of course, they both represent kind of the mountainous part of Europe, Switzerland and Austria, respectively. And
Yeah.
I think you guys are both right. I think he is underachieving for how naturally talented he is.
I'm very surprised Red Bull haven't picked up sponsorship for him.
Yeah, because he's Austrian.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
You'd think they'd support an Austrian.
Support their own, you know.
Yeah. It's
Might see it in the future.
yeah. I mean,
Hopefully.
if like nepotism's alive and well in MotoGP, and it should extend to him.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we're doing 5 questions. That was 3.
Yeah.
So the next question, I like this question because, you know, we've seen a lot of riders who haven't done what they should have. So question is from Dijon Compton, who says, do you think the Red Bull rookie system works for British riders? And I don't think it does, because I'm going to bang in the name of Rory Skinner, which I know a lot of you will know of. You know, he's now racing in the British Superbike Championship after winning the Supersport Championship last year, after pretty much wiping the floor with everybody. You know, he's a rider who has basically exceptional talent. He raced in the CEV and did really well. I'm pretty sure he won races in the Red Bull Rookies, and yet he still couldn't get a World Championship ride. He still couldn't get himself a ride in the FIM CV Junior World Championship that was at a top tier bike. Right? You know, he was racing for I think it was the British Steps Foundation.
Yeah, Racing Steps.
That's it, Racing Steps Foundation team. And, you know, they were all right. They weren't amazing. His teammate was Dan Jones, who again is a great rider, but they weren't given. It's not, you know, it's not a top tier team. It's not Leopard. It's like Leaf, you know. And so I don't think it works, because we saw Rory Skinner drop out, go to the British Talent Cup, and then win the whole thing, and then still didn't get a ride. There's a lot of things about Dorna, you know, people like not giving him a chance and stuff. But again,
you've got Rory Skinner as one example, but then you've got Scott Ogden as another example.
And Matt Cook.
Yeah, who, like, Scott Ogden's doing the Red Bull Rookies this year.
Yeah.
Shout out, by the way, top 10 in the first practice, the first test sessions. That's really good. But he's doing rookies, and he's on a very good team in Aspar.
Yeah.
So what has he done differently that Rory Skinner didn't?
Yeah, I don't know. I think because of the British talent team aid that obviously Scott Edden has from Dorna placed him in the Aspar team. You know,
yeah, exactly.
Aspar didn't hire him.
There we go. That's exactly what I'm saying. Whereas Skinner won the British Talent Cup after returning.
Yeah, but the
Whereas
thing is,
Ogden
Rory.
wanted after coming through.
Yeah, but Rory wasn't on side with Dorna. But for whatever reason, Rory has not been on side with Dorna and therefore hasn't received that help. Obviously, they placed him in the British Talent Cup after he didn't get a ride, which is great of them. But then he won the title and didn't get anything out of it. And I was racing in BSB. But then Max Cook, again, he had Dorna on side. He raced in the British Talent team. Yes, he didn't perform amazingly in the CEV Championship, but another year, aka this year, he could have done really well.
I was very disappointed that he is no longer in CEV, actually.
Yeah, I am too. Obviously, he's racing, I think, British Super Stock this year.
Yeah,
but
600, isn't it?
Yeah, he should have had an extra year. I think he only did 2 years out of the 3 in the rookies as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hesitant to say that it does well for the British riders. I think if you're Spanish, you're doing all right in the rookies. But...
I think now it's more. Ogden's going to be the precedent now, because
O'Shea.
Yeah, Ed and Eddie O'Shea. Because obviously, what you've got to consider is now we've got someone who's come through a talent cup to get to rookies.
Yeah.
Whereas Skinner obviously didn't.
No.
So they are going to be the precedent.
Yeah.
To make this decision on whether it is or not. Ogden's in spectacular company at the minute. There's some amazing talent in the rookies at the moment.
Oh, phenomenal talent.
Yeah, and for him to be in the mix at the front of the top 10 and only getting better, if we're being completely honest. He's got the work ethic, he's got the attitude, he's got everything he needs. If he can get out of it and succeed, which I have no doubt I think he can, especially with Aspar's help, then we can say yes, it works.
Yeah, sorry, Jacob, go on ahead.
No, go on. It's just if he's going to be the marker almost.
Yeah, I like the Red Bull rookie system a lot, actually. I think it breeds a ridiculous amount of talent, as we can see in the classes currently. But as for the question as to British and also Irish riders too, the issue I have with it is more geographical access than anything else. Because the MotoGP Championship and, of course, Dorna are based in mainland Europe, it naturally lends itself more to Spanish and Italian riders than to British and Irish riders. So if you're a young, aspiring British or Irish rider looking to compete in the World Championship, it's always going to be an extra roadblock for you compared to someone who's already on the mainland, because you have the issues of access and finance and sponsorship and so on and so forth. So I think the system itself is brilliant. Again, we see how good it is with the amount of talent that's already in it. The issue for people from this part of the world is that access. But unfortunately, that's just an obstacle no one can really help.
I think you might be right, actually, in that there is one way in and out of Britain, unless you're prepared to go on a boat to Santander or something. But yes, I actually agree with you in that it's difficult to get off the island and find sponsors. You just have to bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah. It's more expensive for young riders and their families. I know it's not obviously Britain, but whenever he was coming up through the ranks, Casey Stoner had the exact same problem. Because he was so far away from the hub of Grand Prix motorcycling, it was much more an expensive issue of access for him to actually compete. His family had to move to Europe and give up everything in Australia. And I'm not saying British riders or Irish riders have that problem, because they are much closer to Europe, but they still have that access problem. That's the difficulty.
Yeah, I think you are right there. At the same time, though, what I would say is if you are British and you have a rider who has a real shot at making it, you move. You don't remain in Britain where there's no sponsors, no anything like that.
Yeah, you have to move to Spain at the end of the day. Tom Bouvet must move to Spain as well.
Yeah.
If you want to make it, unfortunately, you have to go where the money is, which is Spain. Question 5 comes from Jules_SBZK, which asks quite an interesting question, actually. I really like this question. It says, what will be the next generation of engine? Will it be turbo, hybrid, electric, hydrogen engine, or anything else?
Electric.
Yeah, I think
car manufacturers are already stopping making internal combustion engines by 2030.
Yeah, so I don't know how it all translates to MotoGP. I think we'll see.
The future in petrol, sadly. The future is electric. As we're seeing more motorbike manufacturers are making electric bikes now, and eventually it's going to be a case of Energica will not be the only electric bike that is in the MotoGP paddock.
Yeah, there'll be a few. I can guarantee that.
I don't think hybrid would work because I don't see how you could make a system small enough to recuperate the amount of energy you would need from the carbon brakes. And turbo and supercharging is no further along than the engines we already have now.
That's true.
Like you don't need to chuck a turbo on a Ducati. You just don't. Like
That thing would
it's
do
that
about
simple.
600 miles an hour with a turbo. Jesus.
Can you
like you don't need any more than 300 horsepower as you have now from a Ducati.
Yeah.
And if you say, oh, they never said they had 300 horsepower, they have more than 300 horsepower. Deal with it.
Yeah, they do. They genuinely
just
do.
So you don't need to chuck a turbo or a supercharger on either of those. Because
I mean, it'd be pretty cool, but
yeah,
like Kawasaki have proven with the H2R
the
that supercharging can work.
Yeah,
but you don't need it at the top level because the responsiveness from a naturally aspirated engine in both cars and bikes will be blunted as soon as you add forced induction.
Yeah.
Which you do not need when you're trying to deal with a bike with that amount of power anyway.
Yeah.
So future is electric. It's that simple.
Well, I have to admit, I agree with Jacob on this, and I agree with him for one simple reason. There's already an electric championship in Grand Prix motorbike racing. We have the Moto E Championship, and that's proven that Dorna are clearly thinking towards electric production already anyway. Now, in no way am I an expert in how electricity is going to work in powering the bikes. I'm not going to claim that I am, but they're going to have to look at some way of, keeping the existing structure of Grand Prix motorcycle racing, but getting an electric engine that's big enough to at least be something like the main class, then one for Moto 2, then one for Moto 3. How they do that's an entirely different question, but their existing infrastructure and their existing practices already answer your question as far as I'm concerned. The future will be electric because they've already invested in an electric championship, and quite frankly it has worked.
Oh, I agree. I think once electric comes far enough to do a 28 lap race, then we'll see the move over. That's the only thing that's stopping electric from currently taking over anyway is the range.
The only thing that I would be concerned with electricity, though, in bike racing is potentially things like batteries overheating and causing horrible fires. Now, it's not an accurate comparison. I will preface my opinion with that. But for those of you, I'm sure all of us do, but for those of you who watch something like the Grand Tour, you'll see what happened with Richard Hammond's Rimac. It went off, it crashed, and it burned for about 4 days straight because there was that many ion batteries.
Yeah, it was melting the next battery cell.
Yeah, it was causing like thousands of chain reactions and battery combustion, and that's going to be the real health and safety concern. As far as I'm concerned, all of us want to see. Well, I mean, I know I do. I want to see the bikes stay the way they are with combustion engines, but at some point we are going to have to face the fact that the future will start to be dominated by electric bikes. And for the environment and everything, that's not a bad thing, but it's a whole different question actually implementing that.
Yeah, like, I gotta be honest, I've got no preference on whether it's internal combustion or electric. Like, if it's got two wheels and a power source, I will watch it, and I will enjoy it. Like, I wouldn't care if it's a hamster and a wheel powering it. It'll still be bike racing.
Yeah, as long as it's still competitive.
Yeah, as long like Moto E is, a lot of people point blank refuse to watch it because it's electric,
which is stupid because it's some of the best racing you'll see.
Yeah, and that's what that was my point I was about to make. Is you're actually missing out on some great racing. Like, look at internal combustion engines in the early 40s, 50s, just after the war. They were useless. Like, you get 1 gallon to the mile. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just, now, look where we are. Look what we can do. electric is going to develop. Like people like Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk in the motor we've had
look at how far Elon Musk has pushed electric development in the past 10 years just through sheer willpower of making Tesla work.
Yeah,
I see absolutely no reason why. And Tesla are actually a really good example of how I think the classes would work. Because obviously you've got base model, standard model, performance model. Look, you have you'll have the base model, lower power, different chassis, Moto 3 style. Then you'll have the mid tier, which is standard, like just your general electric, general chassis, etc. I assume they keep Moto 2 the same, and possibly Moto 3 as well, and let chassis manufacturers develop their own thing and keep maybe a control electric engine. And then you'll have the big class, which is the outright balls to the wall maximum power job.
Yeah, like Honda making their own electric bike.
Yeah, well, Honda, like they've already got hybrid systems. They could do it. Yeah, there's no reason 100%. Anyone in the MotoGP paddock couldn't develop an electric bike. If we're honest, it's just whether they want to.
Well, I mean, what I will say on that point as well is, and I could be wrong in this, but I'm at least 90% sure I saw it somewhere. I think at some point last year, the big four of the Japanese motorbike manufacturers, Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, and Suzuki, I think they all filed patents for electric motors and for electric motorcycles. So it's probably already in motion as we're speaking about this tonight.
Yeah. I do believe Honda's was a hybrid.
Yeah.
A hybrid adventure bike, if I'm not mistaken. I feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm sure it was a hybrid adventure bike, a la Africa Twin Cross bike.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's no reason a full electric couldn't be developed from that. But once they do figure out the energy recuperation as well to extend the range, there's no reason we couldn't have a race that's as long as a MotoGP race. Simple.
100%. That's what they're working on now.
Porsche's 918 system.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could, whether they'd end up using a tiny petrol motor to power the electric system for range, I don't know whether that'd be able to be implemented or not.
You'd have the noise obviously as well.
Yeah, but the weight issue would be the big problem. But I'd see, to answer the question, electric. Yep, simple.
Right. Moving on to the final part of the podcast, what we're going to do is basically put out our podium predictions for next weekend in Portimao. So as we do, we pick 3 riders who we think are going to be on the podium. No specific order, but it's fun to do.
This is the one I was looking forward to the least, more than Qatar.
Yeah, because Portimao's such a...
Well, it's the first it's the first real race. As I said,
saying?
It's the first actual conditioned race.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it will be interesting. So we're going to start with Moto 3. We're going to start with Keelan. Who do you think will be on the podium, Keelan?
I am going to go for. This is the nightmare with Portimao. It's very, very unpredictable. I am going to go for, in no particular order, Pedro Acosta, Darren Binder, and Gabriel Rodrigo.
Oh, I like it.
You said that last time.
I said Gabri.
Yeah. Okay. Jacob?
Sergio Garcia.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jaume Masia.
Nice.
And then I'm going to go slightly left field, but not quite, because he was impressive. But last year, he really impressed me at Portimao, is Angavara.
Oh, I knew you'd say that.
Okay, all right.
No. I finally get to a place that he's ridden and impressed at. Beat Acosta last year there, you know what I mean? He knows he actually knows his way around. I see no reason why he couldn't.
Yeah, I think he'd be quite good. So, for me, I'm going to say Binder, because he's been very strong.
Yeah.
But Moto 3 is always a tricky one to kind of call, to be honest, because, it's Moto 3.
You could really pick about 10 riders and you'd be fully justified.
Yeah, 100%.
But I'm going to go a bit left field and say Andrea Migno.
Okay, nice.
Third, well, not really third, because it's, I'm going to say Acosta, because he's impressive at the moment. Right, moving to Moto2, who do you think, Keelan?
I mean, this isn't terribly original, but this is going to be a common theme throughout the season for me. Sam Lowe's. I just think he's going to be on the podium.
Yeah, I think you can copy and paste that for all of us.
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
I'm sorry, guys. It's not terribly original. Who's my next one? See, this is where you could pick about 3 or 4. You really, really could. I am going to go for Marco Bezzecchi.
Good show.
And then I'm going to throw my wild card in for Portimao and go Joe Roberts.
Okay. Not a bad show.
I think Joe was very impressive at LaSalle before he crashed.
Yes, he was.
How about you, Jacob?
Right. I'm going to go Raul Fernandez, and I'm going to say he's going to win.
Okay.
Ooh, big shouts.
Win to that.
Yeah. Okay. Look at what he did last season on the Moto3. He knows his way around that place.
True. Yeah.
Sam Lowe's.
Of course.
Remy Gardner.
Remy's a big shout. I like that.
He won there last year as well, don't forget.
That's right, yeah.
So for me, I'm basically just doing a replica of Qatar Doha GP, and I'm saying Sam Lowe's. Obviously. Remy Gardner, because obviously. And then Raul Fernandez, because, again, because he won there last year, as did Remy, and then Sam Lowe's is leading the championship.
However, one name I was iffing and ahhing about whether to say as a serious wild card.
Oh gosh.
I didn't. Was Albert Arenas.
That is a massive wild card. Are you alright?
Judge after Portimao whether I'm alright.
Oh, trust me, I will.
Because
you'll just be judging.
He was fantastic on the Moto3 with all the pressure he had of winning the title last year, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he did the test at Portimao, don't forget, or he's already ridden there on the speed up, or the Boscoscuro as it is now. And he was less than a second off the all-time lap record set in Moto2 straight off the bat.
Yeah,
I don't think it's as silly as you think.
No, I think you're actually on something there. Fair play. Right, Keelan, for MotoGP, who are you saying?
God damn, this is a nightmare to pick. This is so hard. And I'm either going to look like a genius or I'm going to look like a fool, and I don't know which. I am going to throw... Screw it, I'll throw Miguel Oliveira in. National pride, why not?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Oh God. I'm going to throw... Who am I going to put in for second? I'm going to put Vinales.
Yeah.
And then I'll throw a little bit of a surprise pick in there, just purely for entertainment, because this is too hard for me to pick based on merit. Marc Marquez.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have prefaced saying I don't think Mark will get a podium.
No, I don't.
I think he's at least crazy enough to test the waters and try.
Yeah. I understand why you've said it. Don't get me wrong. It's not out of the realms of possibility at all.
No. So, how about you, Jacob?
I'm going to say Pecco Bagnaia.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
And the Suzuki Duo.
Oh, okay. So no Oliveira.
Okay. No Oliveira.
I mean, come on. Well, it's interesting you say the Suzuki Duo, and I'm going to ask why, because they were not the greatest there last year. They really did struggle at Portimao.
Yeah, I believe this year they have something extra they didn't have last year. They seem more level in the way they go about their business.
Yeah.
Okay, Mia didn't qualify brilliantly at Doha, but Rins was in Q2 both times, which was rare last year. Well, not rare, but you know what I mean. He wasn't up there as much in qualifying. So I think Rins I think Rins will beat Mia.
Okay.
But Mia, as we've seen since his Moto3 days at Portimao, he knows his way around there. He crashed out last year, but he was just... I think he was on a high of winning the title. He just didn't care.
And he does know the track.
I think he pulled into the pits. I think he had an issue with his bike last year.
He stacked it into someone and
he
broke something, didn't he?
Yeah, I remember now, yeah.
So I don't think he cared, if I'm honest. He won the title. He's just riding for fun almost. But now we're into a
basically.
serious start of a title charge again for him. I see no reason why those Suzukis, because I think the Suzuki is a better bike than the Yamaha, and I would even go as far to say that the riders are better than Yamaha riders. So, for that, I think Portimao is a perfect place for him to really step on, show the Ducatis that actually we're here to stay. You can't shake us off.
Okay, interesting. Okay. For me, myself and I have gone for Miguel Oliveira to win the race. I'm just going to put him on the podium, because KTM. I think he's got a shot. I'll say that.
Oh yeah, so, I nearly said him. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. So Miguel Oliveira. Then I'm going to put Jack Miller.
Big shout.
Because he was strong there at the end of the day last year.
He was, absolutely.
I'm going to say Mr. Johan Zark.
So no inline 4 on the podium, you reckon?
No, I'm saying Ducati Power. And then obviously KTM as well.
One of the name I was going to throw out instead of Oliveira, like one who I had to the side of Oliveira as another substitute was, I think maybe Fabio Quartararo too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think Fabio and Vinales could probably get on the podium as well there.
Yeah, they seem to have gotten to grips with the new M1 very quickly.
Do you know what? I think if KTM are good, why not Brad Binder?
I was tempted to say Brad Binder. I won't lie.
Because I think it does depend on, as I say, it depends on everybody that we get to real conditions in inverted commas.
I agree.
We're going to see the true state of the championship now.
Yeah.
So I think these predictions are just they you just don't know, dear. It's that simple. Like these predictions are quite simply a case of guesswork. Like there's no even an educated guess going in here because we've seen nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the thing is a case of just knowing who's fast.
Yeah, and the thing, of course, is like we said a minute ago, this is only the second time we've ever seen these bikes in Portimao apart from last season. So we've got such little information to go on that you could probably throw any rider in the grid out there and you wouldn't be unjustified in picking them. There's just no way of stamping any of them down definitively.
You think Marquez is going to actually have a slight advantage in that he's ridden Portimao more recently than everyone else?
No, I don't think so, if I'm honest. Because he didn't ride his actual race bike, he just rode a street bike. But he's probably like 50 HP left.
Yeah, I think the track conditions are going to be very similar though. So he's going to know there.
It was I think it was colder, to be honest. It would have been colder when he was riding there, so yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I reckon so. But yeah, don't laugh at us if we're wrong on this because you just haven't got a clue. Like,
no. And that is all we've got time for. But I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we will be back next week after the Portimao race to obviously be proven wrong by all our results. So I hope you enjoyed listening, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.